wonderful. I so appreciate just having such gifted musicians. So thank you. Let's give them a thank you. And actually, it's a little bit of a parable for soul friendship, because it's not just about the gift, it's about the heart. Because you can have someone who has all the skills, they know how to play the right notes at the right space, in the right order.
It would have been a Mark of my moment, because you was lost behind the piano.
Oh, very good, yeah, just at the top of your head. It's all about the hiddenness. So this is our final sort of teaching session, if you like, and Penny and I are going to try and find a way through these last few days and bring perhaps a next step. It's not a closure, it's a next step. And I was using language like land the plane and all these kind of things when Penny's like, I was scared to mention geese lifting off. Suzanne.
We're going to sleep ourselves.
Restrain yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, don't.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've started something. So, we've been thinking about soul friendship. Has it been helpful?
Yes.
Yes, good. And I hope what we've done is we've actually released people into a new freedom. That somewhere along the line, we pick up cultural expectations of what a soul friend is, and it actually has restricted us in some way. And I'm really thankful. A number of you have come up to me and said, thank you so much. And most of you who have done that have been in what I would call the professional category. You're either trained spiritual directors or vicars or counsellors in that sort of specialised space. And Jackie said to me, where are you, Jackie? You're around here somewhere. There you are. Jackie said, I'm going to go back to my church and use this framework, because it's actually going to release the church into soul friendship. Instead of people thinking, oh, I can't do this. And so within this group, each one of us are more than capable and equipped to be peer mentor soul friends. But it's not just about the skills. And so I just want to lay a foundation in this session, and Penny's going to follow up with, we really want to be led by the Spirit and manifesting the fruits of the Spirit. So we might think, well, what we need is listening skills. Well, actually, if we have the fruits of the Spirit and are led by the Spirit, we will operate listening skills. So the skills are important, but there's something about the presence of the Spirit and the fruits of the Spirit that will make us good soul friends. Do you agree with me? Because you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the skills to do this. We want to send you home full of the Spirit and full of the fruits of the Spirit, so it will flow out of you rather than thinking, I've now got to tick these boxes or do these courses like Roger. Sorry, couldn't resist that, Roger. So I'm going to read a little story to you from this little blue book, A Guide for Soul Friends. So this is the story of Kieran and Kevin, two good Irish saints. And it says, when Kieran was dying, he waited alone in his little chapel for his soul friend Kevin. Where did Kevin come from? Yes. Unfortunately, Kieran died before Kevin arrived. However, Kieran's spirit returned from heaven and re-entered his body so that he could commune with Kevin and welcome him. The two friends stayed together from the one watch to another, engaged in mutual conversation and strengthened their friendship. Isn't that beautiful? What kind of soul friendship do you think those two incredible saints operated in? Pure. Now, they were obviously spiritual fathers, weren't they? We think of them as like, wow, these are athletes of the spirit, giants of the faith, but they were actually pure soul friends. And so it's something incredibly releasing. It's there in the stories. And once it reminds me of, you know, when you buy a new car and you suddenly see your car everywhere. You know, like I bought myself an Audi. I've always wanted to have an Audi A3. I bought an Audi A3, a white Audi A3. Every time I'm driving along the road, I'm like, there's another one. There's another one.
Well, if you do want to be posh.
Well, I am posh. I married up, that's what helped. And so, it's a bit like buying a car and suddenly noticing it everywhere. When you start reading the stories of the Irish saints, you will suddenly think, there's a pure relationship. Even though these are mature Christians and mature, even professional level Christians, there's still parenting going on, there's still professional level going on, and there's still pure. It's incredibly fluid. And if we just get released into that space, it's going to be liberating. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, Scott.
So I wanted to very quickly lay a bit of a foundation from Galatians 5. So if you've got access to your Bible, turn to Galatians 5. None of this is prepared, so I don't have notes, I don't have slides or anything. Penny and I basically just met last night and said, what are we going to do tomorrow? And within the tradition of the Celtic saints and the Desert Fathers who inspired them, they took a word from Galatians 5:1, the word for freedom in New Testament Greek. Do we have some Greek scholars amongst us? I'm sure we do. I think it's alethetheria is the New Testament Greek word for freedom. And is that right, Daniel? You're nodding. Aletheria, thank you. Thank you, Simon. Aletheria. And it's the word that's used here in Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom, that's the word, that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. That's what soul friendship is. A soul friendship is, how do you help people walk out the freedom they have in Christ? And how do we help them not come under these yokes of slavery again? You know, other translation says, "Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you?" Which sounds kind of like, woo! But something was going on that they received the freedom of Christ, the gospel of grace, and then they put these laws on top of themselves. And actually, within new monasticism, we can fall into the same trap. We create a trellis, a framework, a way of life, and suddenly it becomes a law, and we're beating ourselves up saying, "Oh, I'm not very good," or "I'm not, faithful enough," or "I couldn't be a voyager because I couldn't do this," or "I couldn't be a soul friend because..." We give ourselves all these lists of failures. Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you that you began in this way and you've fallen into this trap of law rather than grace? And what we know from the backstory of Galatians is that people were following Paul around saying you need to get circumcised, obviously to the men. Because, Paul was preaching the gospel and then people were following him around saying that's not quite enough. You need the gospel plus. And this kind of hierarchical, law-bound way just slips in, and it feels very holy. Because it's our flesh, where what we're actually doing is feeding our flesh. And so when you get to Galatians 5, you see this contrast between the flesh and the spirit. the fruits of the flesh, and then the fruits of the Spirit. Do you see that? And so the desert fathers and mothers, they talked about this freedom, this New Testament Greek word that I'm not going to try and pronounce. Origen, who was one of the church fathers, he called it the exodus of the heart. And so this idea of having been in Egypt under the Pharaoh, you go on a journey towards the promised land and you walk with one another. That's the language. And so a soul friend is a companion on the way. And you have a Moses, and you have a Joshua, and you have peer mentors. You have all these people are with you. It's done in community. It's a covenant. It's not meant to be individualistic, nor is it meant to be consumeristic. It's meant to be together, moving towards somewhere. And so I think it's very liberating. And what Paul says to them in Galatians 5:7, you are running a good race. Who cut in on you to keep you from obeying the truth? So there are going to be different voices as we run our race, which is why we need the voice of soul friends. We need the parent, the professional, and the peer just to be our coach. You know, this language of being an athlete of the Spirit, of being in a race, having people with us. You can do this. You know, here's a training regime that might be helpful for you. Why are you having a fried breakfast every morning? Which is what I asked myself today. Look at all those nice Rice Krispies that you could eat. No, let's have sausage. I've not had breakfast of faith once this week. My wife, Faith, I mean. So, walking by the Spirit is the foundation of soul friendship. It's not listening skills, safeguarding, tick. All these things matter. They're good and necessary, but let's get the foundation in place. And it's to live out of the freedom of Christ, and then these other things that we put in place are just helpful tools. And so let's make sure we've got that framework there in place. Is that okay? Yeah. And so let's very quickly, I just want to look at this list of the fruits of the Spirit. So it's this contrast between the flesh, which is rule bound, and the Spirit, which produces liberty. So the fruit of the Spirit is love. So this is Galatians 5:22. Love, joy, peace, forbearance, or patience is translated as sometimes. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So if you're looking for a soul friend, here's a little tip. Look for fruits of the Spirit. They might be incredibly well-trained spiritual director, but if they don't have the fruits of the Spirit, big deal. Love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are our goals as soul friends. And then we can add some things. We can do some online training, and we can do some tuition, and we can do all those kind of things. But if we don't make those things our goal, what's the point? Because it's Christ. These things represent Christ, don't they? So, what I want to do is to do a little exercise. I've got some post-it notes here.
Where would we be without post-it notes?
Probably right here. But without post-it notes. There are two things that you must know about the wise woman. She is wise, and she is a woman. That's from Blackadder, just in case you think I'm being very profound. So, let's take, I don't know, there's probably about, I don't know how many of these, take 3 of these, so just start passing them out for me and take 3. And we're going to do a little exercise, which is, if you were going to be a peer mentor, soul friend, what would you like to learn? What sort of skills you think would be helpful? Have a think about it. Now, if your brain's only going, just write down listening. And then what we're going to do, can somebody bring the flip chart and put it up here for me? Thank you, David's there.
Right, so what was covered?
So, take 3 post-it notes and write down something that you think, if I was going to be a soul friend, this is what I would like to learn. I would like to learn listening skills, or I'd like to learn boundaries, or safeguarding, or how do I do double listening to the Holy Spirit and to them. There might be some things that you think, I would really like to do that. Now you can see where I'm going with this. So, pencils at the back.
Can we only use one post-it note at this stage and the other 2 for something else?
I need you to write one thing down on one post-it note, because what we're going to do is we're going to gather them together and see if there are themes. Alright? So that was actually a very good question, Liz. It wasn't just being awkward. And if you don't have 3, just write down 1. No one's going to count. Alright? We are not under law.
So we can write all 3 down.
Do them right now, and then you're going to start coming up, and then we're going to start to put them up here, okay? So once you've got them, come forward. And if you can see that yours is already up there, just stick yours on the top of it. For those of you who are internal thinkers, I know this is going to take longer. Penny, I need 3 days to think about this. Is self-awareness. The self-awareness is a really important part of soul friendship, because how do we know what's motivating us? You know, you might think my motivation is to be the absolute best soul friendship, but it could actually be performance within yourself. Like, I will feel better about myself if I'm a good soul friend. Well, that's actually not very healthy. If that's your main motivation. So self-awareness. So I would love us to do some training around self-awareness. How do we develop self-awareness? What's, you know, when we start a soul friendship session, do we do some preparation? What's that one? Yeah, help to know and understand my triggers. You know, so there are some people that will bring things out of you, to use psychological language, your shadow side. You know, there's something in you, if you keep responding to a certain kind of person in a certain kind of way, it's more about you. And so self-awareness is great. So I think we'll have people. How many of you have done training in that kind of area? Look at the room's full of people who've done that kind of stuff. Imagine if we had a session imagine if we had like 8 one-hour sessions that you could just do online with some kind of feedback and a system to make sure that you've actually taken it in, and we can say, yes, you've done that now.
Fantastic.
Wouldn't that be great?
You've just made another load of work for yourself.
I've made more work for myself. I know. I should just keep quiet, shouldn't I? So that's an example of self-awareness and understanding ourselves. And actually, that's within the tradition of the Desert Mothers and Fathers, isn't it? And that's where often spiritual mothers and fathers are great. So if you have those kind of skills, you might actually be a spiritual mother or father in the waiting, just to pass on some of those skills. So I'm going to do this very quickly, then I'm going to hand over to Penny. So we've got things like empathy. So how do we help people with empathy? You know, what sort of skill set does it take? What kind of attitude does it take? Listening. There's also a great big one here about listening, and double listening. How do we, you know, I say you've got 2 ears, one for God and one for the other person. You probably should have a third one for yourself. Frameworks. What sort of boundaries and frameworks do you put in place? How long should you be with that person? How do you start something? How do you finish something? There's just some practical skills around, like we did last night. Was that last night? No. Your session, Liz, Jackie, your session, was that the night before? Yeah. Qualities of a soul friend. That seems so simple, but it's a great idea. Imagine if we just had a 1-hour module on qualities of a soul friendship. And actually, in this little book, I'm pretty sure we've got some of those things. Those of you who wrote it, Graham's nodding. So we could have these modules. A few people have written joy, that's one of the fruits of the Spirit, isn't it? Is that because you've had some miserable experiences with soul friends? How are you? Terrible. That's for the Presbyterians. So, actually what's interesting is a number of people actually have written down some of the fruits of the Spirit, so that's great. Being non-judgmental. Wouldn't it be great to have a module that taught you how to do that? Because you think, well, what does that actually mean? To unpack it and to give some practical skills, this is what we mean by being non-judgmental. It doesn't mean that you know, have a judgment in your head and not say anything, because you're still being judgmental. So there's some practical skills that we could learn. Support. Now, I don't know, whoever wrote support, do you want to unpack that? What you mean? I know what I would think about that.
I have to confess that I wrote it.
You wrote it.
I think it's where can you go if you're having problems as a soul friend?
Yes.
So Ruth Stock and I have already talked about this, and we're already saying let's create a quarterly forum for soul friends that can come on and have those kind of discussions. So we'll have a whole ecosystem of training, support, growth.
Plus
various of us have been speaking about the need for the possibility of short-term limited one-to-one confidential sessions if you have a crisis. If somebody has triggered something in you, you can take to your soul friend, but it might be something about that person. So what we need is within the community to have some people, guardians, others, who have training, who are recognised as being able to hold that for you. But it would not be an ongoing supervisory role. It would be 1 or 2 sessions when you really need the support.
Do you feel encouraged by this? I think it's going to be very empowering.
I think it's long overdue.
It's just the stage that we're at now, isn't it? We're growing, we're learning faith. I'm going to hand over to Benny.
I feel like we should be doing some.
I hear you speaking about online modules, and I think that's one way of training, as in, because I've done my safeguarding training for the Church of England, you just start doing these online modules and then you answer questions and it's done. I guess for me personally, I don't mind watching the modules, but I would then love to journey with a group of people. I think if you're a verbal processor, if you're new to something, it would be nice to be able to have a group who watch the however many modules, and then we meet and we just have maybe an hour on the Zoom and we go into breakout rooms and we just talk and process and learn, and maybe that could be run by someone who's got, you know, that more professional thing. That's what I would like if I was learning. So I'm just putting that.
That's wonderful. And Ian Sutherland and I have also talked about, could we actually build soul friendship training and upskilling by doing events on, say, Holy Island, so that you could come for 3 days and do something like that. So there's all kinds of things that we could do. So I'm going to hand over to Penny.
Oh, just like that. Just like that. Thank you.
For me.
What's that?
Just like that.
Just like that. Can you
Going on.
No, I don't need it actually, it's fine. I do want to just dump that, so I didn't want to damage your laptop in my dumping. That's great. Wonderful, thank you. What I want to do is something a little bit different, but to take that on is where do we go from here, actually from this moment. And I'm just going to do a little bit on what happens with self-awareness. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I've got to dovetail into what Scott has done. Then he starts quoting straight from scripture without having to look up the numbers of where they are, and I'm thinking, oh flip. Then not only that, he starts speaking with the Greek words, and then not only that, there are people in here who put him right. And I'm thinking, oh no. I just go home now. But the truth of it is that that isn't me. And there's absolutely no point in me trying to pretend or even try to do that. So what is in me? What is in me? And often I will ask people, you know, what do you want to do? People say, I need to know what God wills for my life. You know, I think, crumbs, I just want to know what I'm going to have for tea. And have I got the ingredients? No, the vital one is still in the shop. What do you want to do? And that's so often where it starts. What do you want? And I'm going to take us back even a little bit further than that. Because on Tuesday morning, Nigel read that beautiful passage from Isaiah 42, which I'm just going to get up. Here is my servant, whom I uphold. My translation is slightly different from the one you used. Here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. I just want to pause with, I have put my spirit upon him. What happens when the Holy One puts his spirit on the one who is the Christ? Well, everything. God gives absolutely everything. So the Christ who comes to be with us is holy God. Holy God. But then we remember that the Spirit then is given to us. He goes on to say, this is talking about the nation and the peoples, not just me. But he says, just got to find it. That I am the Lord the God who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spreads out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it and spirit to those who walk in it. I am the Lord, I've called you by righteousness. I've taken you by the hand and kept you. I've taken you by the hand and kept you. So we are the beloved because we have Christ's Spirit. That passage is talking about the Christ, the one who is the Word, the wisdom, the life, the very breath. We have that in us. And it's those things, not the knowledge of Greek or the right numbers for the right words in the right order as to where I'm going to find them in Scripture. That knowledge is what then touches me and enables me. The breath that is within me. And that actually is particularly personal to me because that breath that I have has been given to me again because I lost it at one point and nearly was not here. And the vision of Christ breathing back into me. But it's not just true for me, it's true for all of us. We have that breath within us. So we go from here with Christ, whether you've done a training in how to know that you're beloved or in self-awareness or whatever it is. We are beloved. It's deep in our knowledge of God. We are beloved. Where then does that take us? Well, I think back to those words of Ray that actually I wrote in the front of that book. I seek the soul, the essential essence in each person, each movement, and each nation, and then nurture it. And at the front, at the top of the chapter where that is quoted in his autobiography, there's another little line under it which says, I like that sentence. And that's from Oyvind. And I love that, because I really like that sentence as well. But when we were at Ray's memorial service, and you see also in the Aidan Way, there's so many stories about people who encountered Ray, and Ray said to them, you need to do such and such, or I see you doing this. Why don't you go and do it? So many of us, isn't it true? And there's something about seeing the soul in another person that I think is what we need to take on from Ray's gift. Can we see the soul in another person? We know it within ourselves. I know increasingly, not everything, but I know more about my soul. I know what is me and what is not me, that I am beloved. Can we see it in somebody else? And there's a little word that came out this morning as Janet was leading us, and she used the word behold. Behold. And that word behold is often translated as look or see, but actually to go into the depth of that word, hold in love its being. So Jesus said in Genesis, it says something like, behold the fruits and the trees. Hold in love their being. If we go out from here knowing that we are beloved and that everything else is beloved, are we able to pause just a moment every now and then and say, wow, I look out there and I see the plants out there. I can't quite work out what they are from here, but in a sense that doesn't matter. It is beloved. Hold in love its being. Hold in love the being of the one who is before you. It takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of discernment because it's not always that easy. Sometimes when we see another person, we just want to tell them our story. You know, oh yes, such and such happened to me, and oh my goodness, you know, everything from the past it's all there, and you want to tell them and unload it all and pour it out. That does make beholding quite difficult. But if we know we are loved, we don't have to keep telling our story over and over again, because as Suzanne said last night, the story's in there, it's already known and beloved, and that's the vital part of the beginning of soul friendship. Your story is known, your story is loved and held in the most precious place, in the heart of God, because you are known and loved. Your story is held. We don't need to tell it again. Sometimes we do, and that's what our soul friend is there for, but we are called to be soul friends, to go out, behold in love the being of those who are around us, of creation around us. Behold in love. And I think back to those words of Anthony, to discern as being the most important thing. When we're with somebody else, the first thing to discern is that they are beloved. Not that they're an inconvenience, not that they're an irritation, not that you don't want to listen to that all over again, not that I've got other things I'd be rather doing and I really want a cup of coffee. They are beautiful, and this moment when they are with us is a sacred moment. Isn't that what the gospel is? Isn't that what healing is about? The healing, the bringing of Christ to our world. And it's so simple. We make it so complicated. That is what is asked of us. To go out, to see God's presence in the world around us, in each beautiful person around us. We're asked to bring healing to fragmented people and places. That's how we do it. Let's practice that. I've absolutely no idea. Oh, I do know what the time is. I've got a phone here. We've got... What time's coffee?
11.
Oh, well, we're going to finish early. That's all right, isn't it? Unless there's anything we need to add. Let's pause. Let's pause. One of the things that came to me in the sabbatical, and people ask me what was the fruit of it, and I don't really know. But one of the things that came to me was the awareness of this sacred moment. It would be lovely to come to the point where every moment is joined up in one sacred moment, but I'm a long way from that. But let's just pause. This sacred moment. You are beloved. You have been given everything you need. Lord, I pray that you would send us from here with our eyes opened. Most of us had the example of Ray before us, who just saw things in us. I pray that we may be given that gift. And let us first begin to see the belovedness of each person. Let's start with the very smallest and the very greatest thing. That each one is beloved. Fill us with that desire, Lord. Please awaken that gift in each of us. Amen. We have a few minutes. I don't know whether there's anything you want to take on from there, talk any more, or just have another break. You know.
This will require some practical outworking. So,
Could I ask a question?
you just did. You'd like to ask another one?
Yes, we can.
Back in my, because I'm a trained soul-friend, but I haven't done it for a little while because there's been no, directives or whatever. But way back in the beginning, I had a person who, and it was a potential explorer from the community. And when I asked her what she was, how she was going to learn about the way of life and so on, and she just hadn't given it any thought and actually didn't really want to read the book or anything. And so I was trying to guide her into taking on Ray's book, and it seemed at one point I was directing rather than guiding, and then when I think eventually she realised that this wasn't as airy-fairy as she might have thought, and walked away. And I can't, clearly it had an effect on me because I wondered how much I'd been a part of that by trying to gently steer her into reading about the way of life. So I suppose my question is, when does soul friending, and when do you cross that boundary, and when you're trying to keep somebody straight? Do you understand?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's no, I think each situation has its own context, doesn't it? And that's why having a support network would be great. But I think at the beginning of offering soul friendship to someone, you make it clear this is not just about comfort, it's also about confrontation. There's that sense of Christ's invitation and Christ's challenge. And so I think soul friendship is part of that. It's not just making you feel nice, but you've got to begin with being beloved, don't you? So I think the answer to your question is that I think soul friends will have the kind of support environments to ask those kind of questions. And also if we make it clear from the beginning, this is what soul friendship is, then people will know, that's what they're getting.
I also feel that explorers need to know what's expected of them.
Yeah, well, interestingly, Ian Sutherland and Ian now is the Explorer Guide, we're making it much clearer. We're encouraging people to do the Igniting the Flame course, ITF, for your sake.
Yeah. I've been saying I want to do the ITF for ages.
There you go.
I said I just haven't got
Wouldn't it be
it.
wonderful if most explorers did ITF? Yeah.
But they need to understand what's involved by way of life and how they need to study about it so they know
I,
what they're doing.
I think one of the important things is with explorers is to know that they're exploring. And I think another part of it is we come because we felt that lead, and for the person who came to you, it was not for them, and that's okay. It's really not a problem. It's but it's going back again. What do you want? I'm just wanting everything to be Celtic and gorgeous, and I can sing to my cows in the cow shed. The fact that they're praying over them, if you don't give me milk in the morning, I'm going to starve and my family with me. So we need the challenge beyond that, but they are
I
exploring.
just felt I'd driven her away.
Yeah.
So one of our modules will be how to sing to your cows. Can I just coming back to this? We will send out an email saying, look, we've grouped these things into themes. We're recognising these are needs, and we need people to help us with some of the modules, the training, and so on. Ray.
Can I just say that I don't know if this is going to be helpful to anyone else in the room, but over the last couple of days, one of the words that I've written down is discernment. And what I mean by that is over the last couple of days, I've sort of been thinking it would be lovely to be a soul friend, but at the moment it's not the right time for me, and it wouldn't be safe for me to be a soul friend. And at first I felt really bad, and I was thinking, that's not what this is about, and actually that's okay.
Yes, in fact, it's great.
Other people might need to hear that. That's okay if it's not the right time. That doesn't mean never. It just means that now is not the right time.
Yeah.
Can I also? I got one too. So it means I can butt in. Sorry. He knows all about that. I just want to say, all of us are soul friends because all of us are called to nurture and heal others. So whether you're going to be a soul friend with a capital S and a big F, we're all of us called to do it and practicing it. And when the time is right, you'll find people will come. But do it now. Yeah, begin.
I'm just aware we're meant to have coffee at 11, so it's stirring up lots of thoughts.
Thank you. Scott, I want to take up that idea of challenge, and I agree it's there. But sometimes I think you need to establish the relationship first, and it's not good, to take on somebody and be their soul friend who you don't know very well, and then start challenging them, because that can be counterproductive. So I think it takes, and for some people it takes quite a long time to build up that relationship to the point where you can challenge them.
Okay, final one.
I just wanted to sort of say something about the fact that we need to not feel a failure if the person we've set out to start helping as a soul friend doesn't feel that the relationship is right for them. I've had, I think, 2 instances of that, and it kind of shook my confidence. But now I realise, actually, thinking back to each individual, I wasn't the right person for them, and they weren't the right person for me. So, yeah.
I think we really need to wrap up there. Is it past coffee time? No. I'm going to make one exception.
10 minutes. I think something that I've learned as part of my training in my life is that getting to know someone and also how best they learn, because some people really struggle with some forms of learning but can learn very well in other ways. So I think it's just maybe we could have that as part of one of the modules about different, what's their learning style, what's their love language, all of that might be helpful.
What I'm finding very interesting as I'm listening to you is my framework for how the body of Christ works is from Ephesians 4:11, the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the shepherd and the teacher. I'm hearing lots of the shepherds saying, oh, be careful about this, oh, make sure that you're doing this. We need all 5 of these voices as soul friends. I suspect there are probably apostolic, prophetic people in this group that are thinking, I'm not nice enough to be a soul friend. All these shepherds who care about all these people, that's not me. Or you're maybe a teacher and you're thinking, well, I actually do want to be quite instructive in this situation. One of the things that we will teach is how does 5-fold ministry work with soul friendship, so that you are released to be yourself and you're not squeezed into a shepherd box, because that's not the only model of soul friendship.
And also to say, I think one of the things that has stopped people stepping forward to say, yeah, I can do this, is the fear of not being able to set the boundaries. That if I step forward and start walking with someone as a soul friend, what if then they're making all these demands of me that I just can't turn the tap off and I don't know how, and then I'd be terrible, and then so it's safer not to even put myself there in case. So how to set boundaries as a soul friend would be really helpful. Is it? Oh, great.
I was going to say, one thing
Coffee, donuts.
Someone has put snacks up there. I noticed somebody wrote
Someone wrote snacks, so let's take this as a prophetic word.
But I will have a word. Sorry. I just realised there's something really important I need to say to you guys. We have talked at so many previous gatherings about soul friendship, and I and others have said we will put something in place, we'll look at training, we'll do this, and that's been going on for about 3 years. And I apologise for my delinquency in some of that, but I really feel that it was about the Holy Spirit saying, stop, wait. And I feel that now we have the framework, it's the right time. So, thank you very much.
And on those words, it is the right time. Let's go for coffee.